What's going on, guys? Tasker here, and in this video we are going to learn a little bit about implementing the IValueConverter interface in WPF. By utilizing this interface, we can create converters in our XAML without needing to develop our view models to be aware of visual properties. So before we start, I figured I'd show you a bad example so you know what I mean by using our view model for visual properties. Basically here in our first bad example, we just have a isVisible checkbox, and this determines the visibility of our button. So going down here to our XAML, we see we just have our Windows data context set to a main view model. We have our grid with rows and columns, and then we have a checkbox, which its isChecked property is bound to an isVisible property in our view model. We then have our button, which its visibility property is bound to a visibility property in our view model. So backing up here, we're going to go to our solution and we're going to check out our main view model. So here in our main view model, we see we have, of course, the isVisible and visibility property. Now we simply just do an observable object, which I've covered in the past, and basically when we change our isVisible, we want to update our visibility, and if we go down here, it'll set the visibility to visible or hidden based on a Boolean value. Now, the problem with this is our view model shouldn't really care about understanding what visibility is. This is a property mainly for our actual view. Our view model shouldn't really care about visibility or any of these things. And in fact, I don't even think necessarily in most cases it should even care about isVisible. Now we can handle this all strictly in our XAML. So now we're going to go over to our actual project where we're going to play around with converters. I'm going to open up the main window here. If you guys want to follow along, if you check the description, there should be a link to a page for this XAML below. Now basically what we're doing first here is let me zoom in just a smidgen. We're basically going to do the same thing, isVisible to an IMVisible for the button. And also we're going to learn how to use the converter for brushes, and then also converting back and forth, for example, this Boolean to a text box or the text box to the Boolean. And we can do all of this without even needing a view model. So we're going to go over here to our solution. We're going to go to a converters folder I made, and we're going to add some converters in here. So we're going to go to add, and we're going to add class. And here we have our class. We're just going to simply create, we'll call it, this is for the visibility, we'll call it bool2 visibility converter. And we'll simply add that to our solution. And here we have our class. Now, first things first is we want to, of course, make our class public, and we're going to implement the IValueConverter interface, control period. We should add in our system.windows data. And of course, our compiler is still going to throw a little fit because, of course, we need to implement the interface. So we'll simply right click and implement this, and we get set up with the default for converting. Now there's a lot going on here, but basically what you need to understand, at least for now at a beginner level, is what we really care about is this object value. Now this is the value that we're going to be passing it. For example, the isChecked property, Boolean value, or a brush, or various other properties we'll be using in our controls. So since we're going to be checking for visibility, we will be determining this through a Boolean value. So we're going to create a little var here, and we'll call it, we could get better names here, Boolean val, I guess, and we'll simply bool value. So basically this will convert whatever we pass to our converter into a Boolean, because that's what we expect it to be. Then we want to check our Boolean val here, and if this is true, then we want to return a visibility. Of course, we'll have to add in the using statement, dot visible, and of course else then we want to return visibility dot hidden. Now, if you want to do collapse and so forth, then, we could obviously modify this in some way, but for now, I think this fulfills the purpose. Okay, guys, so now that we have this all set up, we want to go over here to our solution, go to our main window, hop down here to our XAML, and what you'll see first is that I have an XML namespace for our converters. I named it converters, and it goes to our CLR namespace, our project, and then our folder. So you should do that as well. If you do have an issue, you can always go up here and rebuild, and sometimes that'll fix any XAML issues. So moving on, we want to go down here to our XAML, and we're going to add in our converters, our converter namespace rather. And we want to get our bool to visibility converter. We want to give this a key so we can reference it later. We'll call this bool to visibility, and we'll simply close that off. Now we're going to scroll down here to our first example, and first we want to give our checkbox a name so we can access its isCheck property. So we'll call this visible check. Then we're going to go down here to our button, and we're going to get its visibility property here. We're going to say binding element name, so we're going to get a XAML element here. We're going to select visible check. We want to access a path here where we want to get its isChecked property. Now this is the part where we have to actually add in our converter. So I'm going to break this down just so I don't go off screen too much. And I'll actually break up our binding here. And we'll do a comma. And I'll break down one more time. And this is where we're going to access the converter. And we're going to get a static resource because we did give it a key. And we'll simply find here our bool to visibility. Now you will notice right away that our button has actually disappeared now that we have bound it to the converter, because this is running in design time. So we'll go down here to our checkbox one more time, and we'll give it a default is checked to, let's say, true. And we see our button now reappeared.